So good evening, friends. I was saying I am very impressed with the way this program is organized. Also the type of people who are attending it, and in fact the type of people who are going to address it just after me. So you have to bear with me what I am going to say, because we'll be waiting for the best to come. After that, when Mr. Shankar Sharma and Vijay Kedia will be speaking. But the kind of people who are attending it, and the way the enthusiasm, the interest in this program itself is there. So I really want to congratulate everybody. So I was saying that who is organizing it? The entire Mehta family is involved in it. So I was just thinking that the name of the company which has organized is Mehta Wealth. But I says the family, Mehta family itself is a wealth which is actually trying to organize this program. So congratulations for doing this. I am very happy that the title of this program is essentially revolving around action, not aspiration alone, and aiming at $5 trillion economy. When I was the Minister of Commerce and Industry, we had prepared some sort of a roadmap as to what would look like the $5 trillion economy. At that time, we were almost less than, a little more than $2.2 trillion. So, we said there is no longer a planning commission which does the planning. So I said, let us draw some sort of a roadmap to do that. Very, very broadly, we said a 5 trillion should look like 60% should come from services, not should come from, in more or less. So that's $3 trillion. 20%. Today's share of India's industry into GDP is about 16, manufacturing is about 16%. So take it to 20%, so about $1 trillion. Another $1 trillion should come from agriculture, and that would make about 5 trillion. But should I just, as he said, only by aiming at it will happen, or we need action? And that's why I'm just mentioning this. So we prepared a plan for services where we identified certain champion sectors of services. These are the sectors which have the potential to become drivers for services economy in a big way. And to do that, we set up almost a 5,000 crores we set aside, approved from the cabinet, and we asked the states to prepare a plan as to how we can actually make it really happen. And therefore, we worked on an actionable mode, and in fact, the champion sectors of services has a potential to really make it happen in the shortest possible time. See, one of the advantages of services is that unlike manufacturing, which in future will find it very difficult to create job commensurate with the growth that will happen in that sector, agriculture has already got too many people on the field. So in fact, there is something like disguised employment. So we have to take people away from agriculture. But in case of services, there is a huge potential to create jobs where the services will increase. Services far more labor intensive than the future manufacturing will be, or present agriculture should be. It should not be as labor intensive as it is today. We have to move the people away from farms. That's what, in fact, the farmer themselves want. If you look at a national sample survey made a few years ago, the farmer themselves were saying that we would like to move away from agriculture, but they don't have a way out. And therefore, the skill development programs become important. But before we come to that, services will be the most important component of creating more jobs in future. One can say startup, yes, but startup in which sector? When you say startup, startup can be in manufacturing, startup can be in services, startup can be in agriculture. So the propensity to create more job lies in services more than all the two sectors. So that's an action part we prepared and therefore working. On manufacturing, As I said, when our Honorable Prime Minister launched a very ambitious program of Make in India, the target was to take the GDP from manufacturing to about 25%. Today it's still at 16%. So we said, let us try to take it to 20%. And then we drew up a map. What are the sectors which can contribute to this? We had prepared a draft new industrial policy, which was put on the website. And there had said that this can be driven by multiple factors. One is to modernize our existing industry. We cannot just wish away what we have and can just abandon it. So we'll have to modernize the existing industry. So the present PLI scheme is a right step in the right direction, like in textiles, for example. Textile, India had a traditional advantage because we grow cotton. That's a natural fiber. And the demand for natural fiber in the world is far, far more than the synthetic fibers. So we have the natural advantage. We have the jute in the eastern part of India, which again is a natural fiber. If you can convert that natural fiber into value-added products, there can be huge potential to grow. So one part of that industrial idea was modernize the existing ones and start to look at the new industry. So which are those new industries, sunrise industries, which will come out? We have prepared a plan. I'll just give one example. Look at genomics. We don't realize India has an advantage. We are home to the best generic manufacturing pharmaceuticals in the world. In the formulations, we are probably one of the best. Again, proved during the pandemic that we could make large number of formulations which were required for servicing the world in terms of very serious crisis of pandemic. But we have the generic, but now the future pharma industry, just not pharma but future healthcare, will move from a very different basis. Be first the allopathy, the modern medicine, which talks about curing a disease after it happens. Ayurveda talks about preventive medicine. It tries to avoid the disease if you change your lifestyle. In case of genomics, we'll be able to predict the disease. We're able to find out how the gene transmits from one generation to another, and therefore what causes the disease. And therefore you can take a preventive steps. Like one of the famous example is what happened in case of a famous film star. I don't watch movies, but I'm sure youngsters like Shankar Sharma would be watching it. So Angelina Jolie, the famous Hollywood star, she did a surgery because there was a possibility of she contracting breast cancer because the previous generations were carrying that gene inside her. So she prevented it by performing a surgery. So the future will be the genomics, because everything that we inherit comes from one gene to another, one generation to another. So if you can actually map it and understand how the genes will travel, you can come out with medicine. So I said we'll have to focus on some of the new industries like this. So just give an example.
Yeah. Sir, I have one question. If I can ask you one question related to what you are speaking.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, fine. Yeah,
okay.
Please have a
So I'll just, because I just tell you the last point.
Yeah.
On this 5 trillion. So one was services, one is in manufacturing, and third is agriculture. And we prepared a plan for agriculture export. First time in India, agriculture export policy was made. And today you can see that when we made that policy, first time, there was no policy. We had our agriculture export was about $22–23 billion, which has already crossed almost $60 billion. And we had set the target of $100 billion. We are on the way to do that. So what I'm saying is, action is something which is needed, and action with proper policy framework. You cannot just take action without having a proper, clear understanding about a roadmap. And if you do that, there is a huge possibility of realizing this potential of $5 trillion in the shortest possible time. We're already close to 3 trillion. So I'm sure we'll reach 5 trillion, despite the fact that we had some very bad 2 years because of the pandemic when there was a contraction of GDP, not only in India, in most parts of the world. And therefore, I'm sure we look forward to that. So anyway, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Yeah. So let me set the context of this fireside chat. The theme itself is self-indicative actually. India Rising, Aspirations to Action. So we can break it up in two parts. One is India Rising, second is Aspiration to Action. So I would like to play one video for India Rising. So it's a viral video. So this video is self-explanatory about India Rising. So entire world is betting on India. Today we'll be discussing on what are the opportunities, what are the challenges, what are the government actions being taken, and most importantly, recently अभी अपने कॉमर्स मिनिस्टर पीयूष गोयल जी ने एक स्टेटमेंट दिया, अभी हम $5 ट्रिलियन की बात नहीं करते, we are talking of $30 trillion in 30 years. So day before yesterday only he gave a statement about $30 trillion we are achieving in next 30 years. So sir, we would like to understand from you ki what are the opportunities, what is the wealth to be created. Here we have many businessmen. So business में भी क्या हो सकता है? What can be the action, government action? What are the government actions to take it ahead?
You know, when we talk about 30, 50, 10, 20, whatever number we take, it's pure arithmetic. For example, if you want to go to $30 trillion, and we are not yet, but say almost $3 trillion, that means we'll have to double the economy. So 3 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 24, and then 24 plus.
Absolutely.
So it all depends upon in how many years you can double it. The China, which is now more than $15 trillion economy already, it could double in a shortest possible time because it was growing at more than 10% for a fairly long period of time. And that's a very unprecedented growth. Even Japan had also achieved similar growths earlier. But China's growth is phenomenal, unprecedented in the economic history of the world. So therefore, when you say what amount, 30, 50, 40, what that amount would be, that depends upon how many years you'll be able to double the economy. And doubling the economy will depend upon what's the rate of your growth. So rate of growth will decide in how many years we can achieve it. So therefore, we have to first find out how can we accelerate the rate of growth. And that's what I was saying earlier. So growth will normally depend upon few factors. One is, of course, everything will have to fall into this bucket: agriculture, services, industry. But also, there are ways to accelerate the growth. Like in case of US economy, the largest economy of the world, which is driven mainly by consumption. So US Fed, which is the central bank of the United States, will always follow the consumption pattern to understand whether the economy is growing or economy is accelerating or decelerating. What is the reason for that? In case of China, it was exactly the opposite. China achieved this high rate of growth through investment. And the investments came for a simple reason, and very simple. China has a very high rate of savings, more than 50%. So when China was saving so much, and the cost of that saving was so low, because China didn't have many other avenues for those investment in the earlier times. Now, of course, they are developing their secondary market and the primary market in a big way. But earlier, there were only banks were the only source where they could put money. And in fact, that created some aberration. And that's why the grey money market grew. In China also, they had a problem. Anyway, that's a different matter. So investment-led growth or the growth which will come from consumption. These are the only two drivers of growth. And then they will fall into these three segments. So now in case of India, we'll have to decide what should be our growth strategy. So in case of whatever the number we talk about, I think in any case, I will tell you something rather than going into numbers. In fact, I was always saying that this fight till also we made it only as a immediate growth, because it's always better to have planning which we can see very clearly and can make it happen. In fact, you were showing when I was walking on the dais my uh, speech in the parliament when I presented two railway budgets. So in my speech I had said, I had quoted Vinobaji Bhave, one of the great, in my opinion, one of the great saints. He had said that when you walk, you must walk, don't look too far away because then you will fall, or don't look too close to your feet, then you will stumble. So I think we have to find a both big midway. So in my opinion, for sure India is on a growth trajectory. We'll definitely reach there. And unlike US or unlike China, we'll have to drive it on both the cylinders, investment led, consumption led at the same time. Of course, there is always a paradox because when investment or consumption, both will come from the household. So if the household don't save, they'll not be able to see the investment. And if they save, they will not be able to consume. So how do you manage both is very important. And that's what we really need to plan properly. But I think very clearly, if you're asking me, my friends, the growth in India is 30 trillion or even subsequently much more when I will not be there. And I may not be even there to see 30 trillion. I'm sure Vijay and Ms. Shankar Sharma will be there for sure. And this growth will be driven by whom? Unlike China, India's growth depends upon entrepreneurship. So Surat is one city full of such dynamism and such entrepreneurial people. They are the ones who will drive the growth. Even in case of China, if you really look at it, it's the largest economy, second largest, in some way largest also. One province, Guangdong, which the capital is Guangzhou, which is like Maharashtra actually or Gujarat, coastal. So that one province was contributing significantly. But again, if you go by not just province but to a city, maybe Shanghai, which was contributing significantly to the growth of that. So I would say सूरत में देश की सूरत बदलने की भी उनके पास काबिलियत है. So इसके लिए सूरत can be the driver for the growth of India because that's entrepreneurship. Who developed diamond trade in India? It was not a government. I was just now, my friend who is come from Mumbai, he was reminding my days in Saraswat Bank when I was the chairman of the bank. So those days I was looking at, the government didn't do anything to develop diamond business or textile business. In fact, this is all the entrepreneurs. So India's growth story of $30 trillion or more will happen because of entrepreneurship of India. So what is that we should do? Allow the entrepreneurship to come to fore. Remove all the hurdles. That's the only positive contribution we can make it there, and you will see India rising at a very rapid rate. Unlike China. China didn't have entrepreneurship. So therefore government had to put in the money. America is a different example completely because America is also driven by the entrepreneurship. But so we have to work on making sure that we allow the entrepreneurs to come to $430 trillion. So we are asking opportunities, that's what you wanted to know. The opportunity is in the minds of people. We should only allow it to come to fore, and you will see even new sectors developing. There was nothing like IT about 35, 40 years ago. There was nothing like diamonds some 50 years ago. So I think, of course, textile has been there for a very long time, even before that. But we can therefore see, or pharma business in India, hardly. There was no pharma industry in India. It just came up maybe 30, 40 years. Or like auto components. See, today, the largest contribution in manufacturing comes from one sector, and that's automobiles. Automobiles is the largest contributor to the manufacturing of India. In fact, in the old series, it was even 48, 49%. Now it's about 37, 38%. But that is possible because of auto component industry. Because automobiles only assembles it. Auto component industry supplies it. And that came up in no time. In the last, after the Maruti came, slowly, the auto component industry grew, the ecosystem developed, and that has happened. So what is there possible is entrepreneurship to be allowed to come to fore.
So, sir, you mean to say that the cost of labor in China is also increasing, and people are finding alternates. Acha, okay. The cost of labor is increasing in China, and the world is finding alternates to China. We are seeing China plus one theory, and the Western countries are now no more trusting China. The manufacturing is getting shifted to Vietnam, Bangladesh, India. So you mean to say that, as per your conversation, what I can make it is that India will take the maximum benefit of it. It looks like. So one more question, that when we discuss about the markets, I am sure that in the next panel everyone would be having a question that market kya lagta hai. But here everyone is having a question that what is India's stand in this current Russia-Ukraine crisis? If you can just elaborate a little on it. Sir, India's stand on the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Yeah.
You know, this is one a very unprecedented situation. Probably posed for the first time in last several decades, definitely after the Second World War, for the first time, such a dramatic change is going to happen in the world. Now, when you say dramatic, somebody would say, what is more dramatic? What is happening in Maharashtra or what is happening in Ukraine? So this dramatic change that is happening is to an extent that you will see after a few years when the history will be written, people will say pre-Ukraine and post-Ukraine world. So that change is to that extent. You will see it's such a profound change that countries like Finland or Sweden, who during the Cold War days refused to take any sides and they remain neutral, are now joined NATO only yesterday. So they joined NATO. So this is an unimaginable change of that kind. Again, this is a time when the Ukraine crisis is actually not just a localized fight between Russia and Ukraine, or on the other side, say, little bit passive support from Europe and Americans, or NATO and rest of the other allies. It's not like that. For example, this has created a new equation. Russia, China are already becoming very close partners. So they are saying that Europe was buying gas from Russia, they will not buy. So maybe that gas will be bought by China. There's already a pipeline which is being built. And if that happens, that means Russia will be even more dependent on China than ever before. Again, after I'm sure the war will end one day, after you'll see that the war is ended and the new situation arises, there might be one configuration of a different kind. Right now, Russia was taken out of SWIFT, which is the major banking channel in transmission of money, etc. So Russia is already thinking of developing their own network of similar nature. Already, one country had decided to sell oil to China in their RMB, that's their local currency. So you will see probably the reserve currency of the world will move, if not immediately over a period of time, maybe, I hope not, to China. And that's another big challenge. In fact, it always happened. If you look at it, US is a reserve currency today, was not a reserve currency a few decades ago. It was sterling pound. Even before that, you'll be surprised after many decades ago, it used to be Portuguese currency. So this always changes. So it's not the first time it's going to happen. But this type of change that you'll see will be profound. So we have an impact on India because first energy sources, then the food crisis, because Ukraine produces a lot of wheat and Russia is not allowing that to be exported to other parts of the world. And wheat is the most staple crop in the world. The bread is the most important thing. People, there's a famous thing saying that if you don't have bread, eat cake. But even cake needs some sort of wheat, some form. So therefore, we'll have a big challenge in terms of the food supply lines getting disrupted. So this is a very landmark change that is happening in the world. And it is going beyond just military crisis. It has an impact on financial issues, financial system of the world. It has impact on energy issues of the world. It has impact on geopolitics. Because as I said, China, Russia coming together may be joined by some other countries, hope not, so I don't want to mention. But if all this happens, which is already, some of it is already happening, we have to be extremely careful and be guarded and be properly proactive in dealing with this. So far, India has handled it extremely well, thanks to Prime Minister Modi's stewardship. But I think we'll have to be very, very careful and very, very watchful, most importantly, in terms of how do we react to this impossible crisis.
So, sir, actually, in terms of per capita, we are at $2,000, right? And every country was at this stage. Let's talk of US. It was in 1950 at $2,000 per capita. UK was in 1960. Japan was in 1970. Korea in 1980. 2005, the recent example for China, right? So China in last 17 years has gone up from $2,000 per capita to $11,000 per capita. Now the thing is that let's talk of the on the other side. Let's talk of the GDP contribution. Services sector contributes around 54%, manufacturing 26%, and agriculture is 20%. This 45% between manufacturing and agriculture creates 70% of employment. So, what do you feel? Should the manufacturing boost be done, or as you said, that services sector should be promoted? What do you feel should be the key area? Because employment generation is being done by manufacturing and agriculture.
See, firstly, as you said, that once you cross 2000, that does not mean automatically we'll get into 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, which happen, but time is important when it will happen. But very interesting example I'll give you. When Japan was growing at a very rapid rate, it hit a air pocket and it really has stagnated for a very long period of time. So people are saying China, same thing will happen, but it didn't happen. China continues to grow now. Right now, of course, during one pandemic, the contraction was the least. Now, of course, these are self-inflicted, that they have declared zero tolerance on COVID, and therefore the economy might go into the negative for the first time. So we have to be planning our own strategy, not wait it has happened in those countries, so it will going to automatically happen to India. Not necessarily. It will happen for sure, because India, I am very sure that India's medium-term and long-term growth is absolutely, definitely going to be there, 100%. I'm not sure, and thanks again, I said, to the people of India. And also the leadership of the government, like Prime Minister Modi, he's really driving it. He's trying to put money into infrastructure, that's the investment-led growth. He's trying to create more and more opportunities downstream, so that again will create more some consumption, etc. So what will happen over a period of time? But still, we should not take it for granted. We have to work on a very proper manner and also strategize it. Now, employment, that's what you wanted to know, that is a significant sector. This is a big issue because, as I was mentioning, see, we have done a very interesting journey from only provider of employment was government. That was immediately after independence. Of course, agriculture still continues to be, and that time also was far more creator of employment, but other off-field employment, agriculture employment, government. Then came the private sector. And then with some more industrialization, blue-collar jobs. So we had a white-collar jobs and blue-collar jobs, either in the government or public sector, private sector, or services, it was provided. Over a period of time, we'll see now that a job profile is changing. Like in case of India, I'll give this example, I'll give it again. See, the government was creating jobs in, for example, in post. So that disappeared because government did not create that many jobs. But a courier services came. That created more jobs. So that happened. There was a time when there was only Doordarshan for a media or entertainment. Of course, Doordarshan was not entertainment. I'm sorry to say that. But that was a sector which could create jobs. But now you'll see so many new channels have come up, maybe 350, 400 channels in India, so that are creating jobs. So, or police may not have created jobs, but security guards are applicable all over. But a profile has changed. There was a fixed term job, and now here you are paid on a contract basis or hourly basis, so job profile has changed. So that is going to bound to happen over a period of time. Now the new opportunities, which will come through startups, because they are the ones who are based on innovation. Breaking away from the past is a hallmark of startups. And therefore the new ideas, will generate jobs. But a job profile is going to change. So if you look at jobs in the past and jobs in the present and jobs of the future, we'll see a fundamental change in this. Now this is the fourth industrial revolution, which is driven by high-end technologies, which will displace jobs rather than creating jobs. But that doesn't mean overall job market will not see job creation. So we have to be very careful in identifying the new job opportunities and train people in those sectors. And that's what is very important. If you don't have skilling program, like Singapore, very, very small city, but they have a constant skilling and reskilling program. So I think that's what we'll have to do. We'll have to create now. Fortunately, it is very easy now because of the kind of information technology we have. We can identify the people who need jobs. We can actually understand their profile very easily, and therefore skilling and reskilling may be very easy. We were talking about earlier, my wife, so she has trained about 100,000 rural women and others for self-employment in the course of last 25 years. So I think that's the NGO. So government is also doing it through the Skilling India program. But we'll have to now tune that program in a way that we can have a laser approach. That means exactly where we need to go and create. But that's a very important issue, and that's what we'll have to work on.
So let me share with you some data. So there are 50 crore people or children who would be coming in working age in next 10 years, and out of that 50 crore, 12.5 crore is from India. So definitely, sir, there would be a challenge, or we can say we can look it at positive as well as negative. Positives that they are definitely going to earn and going to consume. So it will be a consumption economy, consumption-driven economy. And on the other hand, government will have a huge role to play in employment generation. So as you rightly said, sir. So
we can open the floor for questions, please. Here at the first table.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insights, and good to know. At least you have very good bent towards technology and things related to that. My question to you is: would India see an equivalent of Facebook, Alibaba, Netflix, Google coming or emerging and dominating markets instead of us having to rely on such large giants? I'm not saying in the short term, but longer term. Is that something that you feel is possible?
we are unable to hear you actually.
Okay, I'll take another stab. My question to you is, will India, at some point in the future, hopefully not too long, have our own Facebook, Google, Alibaba, Netflix?
So, sir, will we have Facebook, Google, Alibaba of India, like China has? China does not have that Facebook and all these things, right? So they have their own apps in that country. So will we have our own Facebook, sir? Right? Am I right? So will we have our own social media platforms and all these things? So right now we are dependent on US. So almost all the US tech companies explore here, right? So will we have our own companies in India which will be the leader in this? Yes, yes.
It all, if you look at it, all the empires of the world always see a decline. Either even big empires of the world, the Roman Empire, I don't know where it has gone. One of the biggest empires of the world was Mongolian Empire when Genghis Khan was there. So today Mongolia's per capita income is one of the lowest in the world. So this all happens through various phases. Countries will go up, go down. And those days the empire used to be sustained by the might of the army or through that. In modern times, the empires will be built through corporates because they are the ones who will actually drive the economic might of the country, and the economic might will really ultimately rule. So I think companies in India, you cannot say immediately or something, but they will definitely be creating their own mark as we go along. But that's why we have to encourage the companies. In fact, the Korea is another very interesting example. See, the Korea, what is it known as? Nobody knows Korea except these 5-6 major companies and the major conglomerates of Korea. They were encouraged by the government to do that. So if you allow the big companies also in a very regulated way, you should not do any unfair advantage to anybody. There should be a fair competition. They should always follow law, because that's what India should really be insisting on. With that, if the large companies grow, they will become global companies. India will also have that similar influence on the rest of the world. So I can definitely see it happening. Now, one of the areas in which it can happen in a big way is in knowledge-based industry, like say for example pharmaceutical. That's why I was just giving example of the genomics, where we have great advantage. Because in genomics, we have another great advantage because of India's unique system of caste. Therefore, the marriages happen from one generation to another. That's why the transmission of gene also happens in a very predictable way. And therefore, it is very easy to track it and also to come out with the genomic solution in a proper manner. And that's the future. If you really look at it, that's going to be the future. Or if you look at it, where were these top companies who are now in the US, top companies of the world? They are no longer. GE is not a top company of the world, which used to be about 40, 50 years ago. And now all these Google and all the Apples, you can say Apple or Alphabet or Amazon now. So they were not even there 30, 40 years ago. So now if you focus on the growing areas, where the growth is going to come, where the future ideas lie, and encourage companies to focus on those areas, India will dominate them. So it all depends upon, first, entrepreneurship. In India, it's in abundance. Making sure that this is allowed to come to fore, and also for those who have, not every company may not have global ambition, but those companies who have global ambitions, to allow them to grow by supporting them for their growth is something we need to do. In fact, all the major economies of the world, they always encourage the domestic industry to grow abroad. And therefore, we also, there is nothing wrong in India doing the same thing and encouraging Indian companies to pursue their global ambition.
So I'll just conclude the fireside chat by one quote from Chanakya, that when all the anti-nationals, anti-social elements, thieves, looters come at one place and shout the same voice, then we must understand that the kingdom is ruled by the right and great king, and the country is in the right direction. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you,
all
sir.
the way
Thank you.
from Delhi. Sir, please.
Thank you so much for such an insightful session. I would like to request Mr. Jeevan Mehta to please come on the stage to present a token of appreciation memento to Shri Suresh Prabhu ji. Please give him a huge round of applause. I also request Shri Sanvar Budhia ji to please join on the stage to present the memento to Shri Suresh Prabhu ji. Mr. Sanvar Budhia ji. Shri Piyush Bhai Desai, please come forward to present the token of appreciation to Shri Suresh Prabhu ji. A huge round of applause